Hi, and Shabbat Shalom. So today's Torah portion talks about the famous laws of Shemitah and Yovel, which means the sabbatical year and the Jubilee year. Here's how it worked. For 7 years, it says that we would count 7 years, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. On the seventh year, the sabbatical year would come, and it says that we'd have to let all the lands in Israel lay fallow, which means to say that no work was done. Whatever grew, but we wouldn't any farmers would do no work whatsoever in Israel. We count 7 times 7, 49 years, and then the 50th year would be the Jubilee year. There'll be certain laws associated with this year. The basic concept was that the 50th year, any kind of real estate transactions, for example, would go back to its previous owner, which means to say that you couldn't actually sell real estate. You would just basically lease it for up to 50 years. Other laws pertaining to, let's say, slaves, they would go free, and so on and so forth. Not to get into all the details right now, but that's the general concept. But what happened was, interestingly enough, is that there were 3 different periods in Jewish history, us now living in the 3rd period, of how the laws of the Jubilee year actually were implemented. What happened was like this. From when the Torah was given at Mount Sinai till the end of the First Temple period, the way they counted was like this. 7 times 7, 49 years. Then the 50th year, the year following this year, was the Jubilee year. And then they start counting the first year, in other words, the next cycle of the 49 years, the year afterwards, year 51. Then what happened was, after the temple was destroyed, the next time they start counting it, in other words, the next cycle, was the 50th year was actually year number 1. So you had 49 years, then you start counting again year number 1 for the next cycle of 49 years. Notice year 50 was actually year 1 of the next cycle. This went on till the end of the second destruction of Second Temple, and really the same cycle we count now after the Second Temple period as well, the last 2,000 years or so. Now what happens is, the laws of the sabbatical year continued. The biblical laws of the sabbatical years continued throughout till the end of the Second Temple period. After the destruction of the Second Temple, there's a debate between the Babylonian Talmud and the Jerusalem Talmud whether today we observe the laws of the sabbatical year, whether it's biblical or rabbinic in nature. So that's the three time periods. Again, from the beginning of the Torah till the end of the First Temple period, from the end of the first to the Second Temple, and then again from the end of the Second Temple until today. Now the question is not only about the sabbatical years, but also really about the Jubilee year. Why until the end of the First Temple period did it have its own year? After that, we still counted it as a year, but it didn't have its own year. Now we don't even bother counting it. What actually changed? So it's very interesting is that the main reason why it changed this is historic, is because until the end of the First Temple period, all the Jews lived in the Holy Land of Israel. When the temple was destroyed, Jews were kicked out of Israel and never returned fully to the land of Israel. And because not all the Jews lived in Israel, we were not able to live up to the laws of the Jubilee year. And because of that, they didn't implement it, they didn't count it as an individual year on its own. And of course, now we don't even implement it. But the question is, on a deeper level, what's really going on here? So I'd like to share with you a thought of the difference on the spiritual level of the 3 periods of Jewish history. The ideas of what Jubilee year teaches us. Why is it that when the Jubilee year was counted, literally land went back to its owner? What's going on here? So what does the sabbatical year teach us to begin with, spiritually speaking? That we actually needed the Jubilee year to teach us something different. Like, what does the Jubilee year add that the sabbatical year does not teach us? So on a spiritual level, let's just ask the question today. We are going through 7 times 7 now between the days of Passover to Shavuot. What's going on these 49 days? And what does Shavuot add, the holiday of Shavuot add to the 49 days? So the 49 days, and for that matter, the 49 years, is really a time period that we work on ourselves to become more spiritually refined. We work on our ego to basically really self-nullification, to subjugate ourselves in the service of God. That's really the basic concept. We work 49 steps. We have 7 attributes, emotional attributes, 7 times 7 is 49, and we try to get every single detail of our personality to become more refined, a more spiritual, more cohesive, better person. But that's all when it comes to the way we behave. But what's about our true essence, the true who we really are? To use an example of this, right? We might be working, let's say, for a company. And we understand that in order for everybody to work together cohesively, this person might be in sales, this person might be in accounting, this person might be in technology. Every person has their role, and for order for the company to work cohesively, everybody must do their part and do it well. And therefore, they put their egos aside and say, how can we get the best product out? How could this company make money? How could this company be productive? But at the end of the day, everybody still wants to be good and shine within their department and do a good job. So there's still, technically speaking, competition. A higher level of service is when each person thinks not about themselves, they totally get rid of their existence, it's not about them at all, and to a certain point, the company might say, we got to downsize for the betterment of the company. Somebody might say, let me resign. Let me retire early because I think it might be better for the company. That's called 100% giving yourself over for the greater cause. It's like a machine saying, it's not about me, this piece, but it's about the bigger picture. Let me remove myself from the picture so that the company or the machine does a better job. It sometimes takes real maturity for an individual to say, I think I should step down from being CEO or being project manager or whatever it should be so that the company can function better. It's very, very difficult to do this, but this is a real high level of egoless, removing yourself out of the picture. Now, during the first temple period, in other words, or I should say from the giving of the Torah till the end of the first temple period, Jews were on a higher spiritual level, and they understood this level. After 49 years, they got to the Jubilee year, in other words, that 50th level of self-recognition, that they got to put their essence aside. This happened only once, not once 50 years, they were able to reach that level. Once the Jews dispersed out of the Holy Land of Israel, although intellectually speaking, they understood that they have to put an effort into reaching that level, but they couldn't actually get there. The temple was destroyed. Jews were dispersed. There was a lack of unity with the Jewish people, and they never got there. They never were able to reach that level of truly putting their ego aside and coming together as one. And ultimately, we know the second temple was destroyed because of lack of Jewish unity. That's what happened. But at least they tried to count it. They put it in their calendar. The 50th year was merged with the first year, but it was part of their agenda. They didn't implement any laws based on the Jubilee year, but they counted it at least on a superficial level. Once the second level was destroyed, we know that it exists, but we cannot implement this into our lives. We barely understand the concept, let alone live by it, because we're living in the year 2021. For us to be able to really put our ego aside and make place for another Jew, this is very, very difficult for us to do. Of course, we understand, so we should try to do this. We take one step at a time, but ultimately one day we should merit to be able to truly live as a united Jewish people and be able to bring the days of the Shemitah, the sabbatical year, into our lives, not only from a biblical perspective, but definitely bring it from a rabbinic nature, but definitely from a biblical nature, and ultimately merit to have the Jubilee year as part of our life as well. Shabbat Shalom.